What's up guys, it's Nick here at Fantasy Forge Miniatures, and today I'm going to be showing you how to take your stonework painting to the next level. So let's get crafting. So we're going to start off by laying down some wax paper, and I've pre-built some little stone wall samples to paint, and I've base coated them with black paint and Mod Podge mixture. Black is always just a good base coat for all your models. So I'm going to start off this classic stone look with some Real Brown by Folkart, and we're just going to put some paint down here. And I realized that I need to get some paper towel, because that's always good to have by when you're going to be doing some painting. So I'm just painting a couple of random stones. I'm doing about 30% fill with this brown, and this is what I call just like the undertone layer. So this is going to get very covered up by highlights and other colors, and we're going to be adding a second undertone of this coffee latte. So we're using a lighter color as well to get some nice variance. So these undertones are really gonna just kind of warm up the entire build, and that's what's gonna stand it apart from just being standard stone, gray. These undertones of warm colors add the kind of depth to the bricks. So we're doing, again, another 30% of the bricks we're painting with the coffee latte here. Now you can, you don't have to go it by bricks, each individual bricks. You can kind of do a smear if you want more of like a granite look to all the pieces. So you can experiment with coverage and color on this one. So once we get, a nice 30-30-30 ratio, I'm just using a heat gun to speed up the drying process. And now we're going to do what I call the medium highlights. So we're grabbing some medium gray, and we're going to be doing a pretty heavy dry brush. So what dry brushing is, we're just going to load up the brush with paint, and now we're going to take our paper towel and we're just going to brush off a bunch of the paint. So it kind of becomes a little bit dry. So we're just going to start scraping our brush across our bricks, and the high points of the bricks are catching that paint and creating that nice highlighting effect. Now we're going a little bit heavier with our coat here, so it's going to be about 50% coverage, because we don't want the brown standing out that prominently. We still want a nice gray brick. It's just an undertone. So this medium one, we get about a 50% coverage of all the bricks there, and it's really starting to look like one piece. So now we're going to take some steel gray here and go for a highlighting of the bricks. So we're going to do the same thing as before. We're just going to do less. So we're going to scrape off a bunch more paint onto the paper towel here and go for a lighter highlighting here. And so again, we're just going to do the same thing as before with the dry brushing, and we're doing maybe 30 to 25% coverage on this one. Still some coverage, but a lot less than the first coat. But you can see here that we're getting a really nice stone effect coming in here, and it's starting to look like one coherent piece. Now for this here, I'm also going to start doing a little bit of edge highlighting with these colors. So you can see there, I'm running the brush along sideways against the edge of the bricks. So this is going to add a cool effect. So I'm using the middle of the brush so that it's only picking up on just the edge, and brushing it along and having that paint just catch the edge. And this is going to add a really nice definition around the bricks for edge highlighting. Is a fun effect. So now that we've got that finished up, we are going to get to our final highlighting here with our pale gray. Now if you don't have pale gray, you can just use white, but I'm going to use that. So we're going to load the brush up, and we are going to go for maybe a 10 to 5% coverage with our dry brush here. Very light, and you don't have to do the whole thing, just in a couple areas. I like to act as if the brush is rays of light, just scraping down kind of in random areas to give a bit of a variation. Now I'm going a lot brighter with the colors here because we're about to do a wash that's really going to dull the whole piece down. So this is a concentrate that I created for doing washes, and it's Liquitex Flow Aid, which helps the paint seep into the recesses, mixed with India ink, and then a little bit of water. And then I got this little mister from the dollar store that I put it in there, and I add a little bit more water. And this just helps with coverage. You can use a brush, but I found this to be really effective when you're doing like large intricate builds, the brush can get a little bit tedious, but this spray bottle works really well. So you just go ahead and spray the wash on there, and you can see how the flowway just helps the ink sink into those recesses. We're grabbing a little bit of paper towel to wash off a little bit of the areas that got pooling happening. And now I'm just adding a couple of drops of straight concentrate to add a bit of a darker variation to the build. And you can see here, you can use the brush and it works great as well. So you can let the wash seep into all the cracks, and then I'm just speeding it up by using the heat gun here so that we can continue on. And now we've got a nice looking stone wall, and you can see those brown undertones really coming through nicely. So now I'm going to do just an extra highlight. The wash did tone things down, so I just want to bring back just a few of those highlights. So with the pale gray there, we're going to do just a nice light highlighting, and I'm not doing the entire thing. Again, I'm just kind of doing spotted areas to just add the effect of light back in, and that is how you make a stone wall with some great depth. You can see the warmth coming through there as the light shifts around, adds really nice depth to the brick wall. So now we're just going to start with the exact same wall piece, and we're going to do some sandstone. So we're going to start with this bark brown from Folkart, and we're just going to base coat this whole piece. Now this process is going to be very similar to the regular stone wall, just with some different colors and a little bit of a different process at the end. So with the base coat on, we're going to start with some cinnamon by Folkart, and this is going to be our color variation. So we're going to do the same as before. We're just going to paint some random bricks with some different kind of colors and tones to add some depth to the piece. So we're just painting some random bricks, and we're going to do the same here with the coffee latte. We're just going to paint in some random bricks here to get our variation. We're going to speed up the drying with the heat gun, and then we're going to do our medium highlight here with some Honeycomb by Folkart, and this is going to start tying the piece together. It's a nice warm color, and we're going to just do the same thing as before with the dry brushing, medium dry brush. And you don't always have to scrape it over the paper towel. You can here, you can see if you just brush off a little bit, especially with the medium highlights you want to have. It's also controlled by the weight that you put behind your brush, how much sticks behind. So again, we're just doing about roughly a 50% coverage with the Honeycomb there. So once that's done, we're going to do our first highlight with some linen by Folkart and dry brush off a little. And again, we're just doing a nice, like 20 to 30% coverage to just get a little bit of a, lighter tone because it is sandstone. So once we get that nicely dry brushed, we're going to do our final highlight with a vintage white. Now this is a little bit of a more yellow white. Again, you can use just plain old white, but I find that the warmer vintage white worked well for the sandstone here. So we're just spotting on a little bit of highlights here, and now we're going to dry and do the wash. Now I'm using the same formula for the wash, only instead of using India ink, we're using Liquid-X raw sienna ink. So again, we're just going to mist it on there, let the ink soak. We're going to dry off some areas where it starts to pool a little bit too much, and then we're going to speed up the drying with the heat gun. And then we are going to get to our highlighting here. Now I'm using the Honeycomb again because with the wash we lost a lot of the yellow feel. It kind of grayed out. So we're using the Honeycomb to warm it back up a bit here and to get a little bit more of that sandy color. And we're going to go right in again to the final highlight with the vintage white. So we did 2 highlights after the wash, and that just brought a little bit more warmth back to it. Now the wash worked in our favor with the gray stone because the black and dulling the colors down works, but we wanted a little bit more color in this one. So here's the final product with the sandstone, and I think it really turned out well. You can see there the yellow and the browns are really coming through. So now we're going to go right into our creepy stone, dark stone vibe. We're going to start with a wrought iron black from Folkart. Now this black has a really kind of greeny, sickly tinge to it. So that's why we're gonna start base coating with that instead of just the classic black, because it's already starting to get those kind of nice green undertones that are gonna make this look sickly. So we're just gonna dry it off there, and you can see it kind of darken there. So now we're gonna start with some clover, and we're gonna mix it together with the wrought iron just a little bit, because it is a little bit bright, but we're using a green undertone, and this is gonna help kind of create a little bit of more of a creepy, sickly vibe to the stone. So again, we're just doing some random coverage of a couple of the bricks, and now we're going to use Violet by Folkart. And this color, again, we're mixing with the wrought iron to dull it down a bit, but this is kind of where you can see and you can experiment with different undertones to create different effects. So I really like the green and purple, gives kind of a, a Halloween-y, witchy, sickly vibe to the stone. And then we're going to just start with a regular stone highlighting method. So we're medium gray, we're doing some coverage here. I forgot to dry the piece first, important. And then we're just gonna do our regular medium dry brushing with the medium gray. So again, about a good 50% coverage. Now we're just gonna grab the steel gray and do our second highlighting here. And we're doing maybe the 30 to 25% coverage. And this is really bringing the piece together. And then our final pale gray, again, you can use white, and our final highlighting on this one. So you can see here how the highlighting brings all the colors together, and it doesn't look so obvious. Now we're gonna do a dark wash, and I'm using the straight concentrate here. So it's gonna get pretty dark because we want this to be our kind of dark, creepy stone vibe. So it is pretty heavy on the ink in this wash. So we're just gonna do a coverage with just the brush here, and you can see how that works. We're gonna dry it off just a little bit, not too much, because we do want this to turn out quite dark. And we're gonna grab the heat gun to dry it off. Now we're gonna use some steel gray to just do some final touch up of the highlights. We're not going crazy with the highlights because we want it to stay really dark. And there it is. There's the final piece. You can see those purple, greeny undertones just coming through and adding a really nice depth to the creepy stone. So here's all of our paint jobs here. We've got the classic stonework. We have the sandstone. And then we have the creepy dark stone. And that's it, guys. That's how you take your stonework painting to the next level and add a lot of depth. Now, feel free to experiment and come up with all kinds of color combinations. I'm always looking for new processes, so let me know in the comments what you guys come up with. If you found this video helpful, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell to get the notifications. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, keep on crafting.